I was flipping burgers in the backyard when the cop car rolled past our cul-de-sac the first time, slow like a shark in shallow water. And if you'd told me 30 minutes later he'd be back because of a trash can, I'd have laughed and handed you a paper plate. But then Brenda Whitmore, the HOA's self-appointed drill sergeant with a clipboard, came clicking up our driveway like she was serving papers to the president, and yeah, that happened. My dad Rick was at the grill, my mom Dana was fussing with salads, my brother Evan was wrestling with the Bluetooth speaker, and I was doing what I do best on a Saturday. Absolutely nothing. Bird sunshine, the smell of cut grass, peace, right up until Brenda pointed that pen like a traffic wand and announced with the kind of satisfaction you usually reserve for game-winning shots that our trash can lingered by the curb last week. $40. Fourth fine this month. Rules are rules, she said like she had written the Constitution in her garage. Dad tried to keep it civil, but you could hear the lid rattling on his patience. "We've paid 3 for nothing burgers," he said, which would have been funnier if he wasn't actually turning burgers. Evan muttered something spicy under his breath. I told Brenda to relax. The can had been up in 10 minutes, and that's when she pulled the move. She loves more than early morning power walks. She dialed the police like she was ordering takeout. You know what I mean? There's petty, and then there's calling 911 because a family is eating potato salad. The officer showed up while the grill hissed and our playlist tried to pretend life was normal. Afternoon, he said, giving the scene a once-over like maybe he'd stumbled into a cookout raffle. Brenda jumps in voice-high words fast about non-compliance and neighborhood standards and how people like us ruin everything. The cop looks at us, looks at a trash can that is currently nowhere near the street, and then back at Brenda. "Ma'am," he says, calm but firm, "this isn't a police matter. Please don't misuse emergency services." If eyes could deflate, hers did. She backed off 3 inches, huffed, scribbled something on her clipboard, and retreated to regroup. We figured that was the end, go back to burgers, move on, but 20 minutes later the phone rings. Dad answers and I watch his jaw set. "The board," he says after hanging up, voice flat. "They're considering legal action for willful noncompliance, and if we want to avoid court, they'll mediate for a higher fine." Let me back up a sec. We are not the light it up and fight everybody family. We mow, we wave, we bring deviled eggs to the block party. But there's a line between community and control, and Brenda had turned the HOA into a toll booth. We're debating our next move when a black SUV glides to a stop in front of Brenda's house. Government issue, tint the whole vibe, and a guy in a suit goes inside like he already owns the place. He leaves with a folder tucked to his ribs and not a hair out of line. Evan says, "That's not Amazon," which sure wasn't helpful, but he wasn't wrong either. Fast forward to 10 p.m., quiet backyard grill, cool stars out, and the doorbell hits like a firecracker. Dad opens it, and there he is, the suit from the SUV. "I'm Agent Collins," he says, "not warm, not unfriendly, just all business. I need to ask about your HOA. We trade looks like our HOA." The man explains in measured, impossible sentences that there's a broader investigation into organized financial activity using neighborhood associations as cover, and that Ms. Whitmore, our Brenda, has been more than a little helpful to the wrong people. "We'll need your cooperation," he adds. Staying quiet would be unwise. Act 1 was the shove. Act 2, the counterpunch, started with a pit in my stomach and a black SUV parked just far enough away to be polite. Days blur when you're watching shadows, you know. Every car feels too slow. Every knock feels deliberate. We tried to go through proper channels, but Collins wanted us observant, not noisy. Meanwhile, the board sent us a formal mediation date and a friendly reminder that fines escalate. The neighborhood Facebook page. God bless it, turned into a bonfire. Half the comments applauded standards, the other half asked why standards suddenly came with late-night SUVs. On the 4th day, I spotted that SUV tucked by the intersection, again driver on the phone profile, hard to read behind dark glass. I told Dad. He looked at Mom. She nodded, which somehow meant we're doing this. We followed at a distance, nothing heroic, just careful through a few turns, and an industrial strip I'd never had a reason to notice to a squat warehouse with a faded sign that said Eastline Logistics and Distribution. It was the kind of building nobody looks at twice, which I guess was the point. We park a block away. We're standing there in that weird, brave, very dumb silence when a voice behind us whispers, "Don't move." I spin Heartful Hummingbird, and it's Agent Collins, hand-raised eyes scanning the street. And next to him, of all people, is Ms. Ortega, the HOA treasurer, hair in a messy bun tote bag, clutched like a life preserver. We only ever saw her at meetings quietly reading balance sheets while Brenda performed disappointment for the crowd. I tried to resign, she says, voice shaking. They wouldn't let me, threatened me. I brought this. She holds up a thumb drive like it's radioactive. Backups of the ledgers she made me delete. The fines, the transfers, the consulting payments, none of it adds up. Twist number 1 delivered by the quietest person in the room. Collins nods once, tucks the drive into a pocket you don't find on off-the-rack suits, and asks if we're sure we want to keep going. Dad says we're in it now because once you've had the cops called on you over a trash can, apparently you're ready for federal intrigue. We circle to a side door, half hidden by scraggly hedges. It's cracked 2 inches. Inside, the air smells like oil paper dust and stale smoke. We move slow, soft shoes, shallow breaths down a dim hall to a cramped office walled with sagging shelves. Boxes, manila folders, printers that look like they survived the Cold War. And on a table, a neat stack of violation notices with our cul-de-sac names on top like a menu. Footsteps, 2 sets, heavy. Collins fades into the corner like he's been practicing it since birth. A man in a suit, the one from Brenda's front porch, sharper up close steps and cool as a surgeon. Behind him, another guy with the shoulder width of a refrigerator. "You're a long way from your barbecue suit," says to my dad, eyes sliding past me to the shelves. "Agent Collins," he adds, like they're old camp friends who burned each other's tents. Collins doesn't blink. "Nice operation," he says, nodding at the boxes. "Creative accounting." Suit smiles without teeth. Community service. Here's the thing about moments like that. Time stretches, your brain screams, your body stays. Collins tells us to stay behind him, voice low enough to be a thought. Suit starts talking soft, charming poison about how HOAs collect money, how money moves, how compliance is a product you can sell if you dress it up as pride. "Your Ms. Whitmore was eager," he says, glancing at a ledger. Some people crave authority, even the pretend kind. He's still talking when a second shadow fills the doorway. Officer Michaels, the same cop who told Brenda not to misuse 911. For a second, my stomach drops through the floor. I think we're done. But then he taps his radio twice. A small sound that explodes into everything. Engines, outside boots and gravel, someone shouting, "Federal warrant, don't move." Turns out Michaels was working with Collins the whole time. Yeah, the quiet cop in our driveway became the hinge. Men in windbreakers flood the hallway. The kind of coordinated chaos you only see in movies and bad dreams. The big guy with refrigerator shoulders reaches for something he shouldn't, and 2 agents put him on the carpet so fast he looks surprised to find it down there. Suit tries to talk his way into tomorrow. Collins doesn't bother answering. In the doorway, Miss Ortega exhales for the first time in days. They find what they need: hard drives, ledgers, cash in a shoebox labeled pool keys. Real subtle. And by the time we step back into the night, the SUV is on a flatbed, and the building looks smaller. On the drive home, none of us say much. There's relief, sure, but also that weird hollow you get after a near miss on the freeway, your hands still shaking, even though you didn't hit anything. Morning arrives with the soundtrack of sprinklers and someone's Labrador having opinions. And then patrol cars nose into Brenda's driveway. Neighbors appear like wildlife at a salt lick. She comes out fast at first, then slower when she sees the badges. Clipboard in hand because, of course, lipstick perfect voice climbing an octave on every sentence. They read her rights anyway. She turns and sees us watching from our porch, me, Dad, Mom, Evan, and Ms. Ortega holding a stainless coffee mug like a shield. And for a heartbeat, I see it, the flicker of a person who can't believe the story didn't end the way she wrote it. I wish I could tell you that was the last chapter, and the credits rolled over a perfect sunset, but life doesn't tie its bows that clean. There were meetings, statements, a stack of emails to answer. The board reorganized. Some neighbors apologized. Others said standards matter, and maybe we overreacted. You know what I mean? People can watch the same movie and swear it was two different films. We tried to take the day back a little, so we fired up the grill again that evening. Same yard, same music, same sky, but the air felt different, lighter, like we'd opened a window. Agent Collins stopped by, no SUV this time, just a normal sedan, and the soft smile of a man who finally slept and thanked Ms. Ortega in the only way that matters, by listening to her, by putting her name where it counted. He told us the warehouse was part of a larger ring, that Brenda wasn't the architect, just a very enthusiastic doorman. You'll hear more, he said, but for now, breathe. So that last scene, this is the one I replay when my brain wants to spiral. The grill pops, Dad hands me a plate. Mom laughs at something Evan says. The dog from next door noses under the fence like he's been invited. And at the end of the block, two kids ride bikes in lazy circles, shouting rules they just made up. The camera in my head pulls back. Houses, trees, a neighborhood that almost let petty power become a business model, and then it pushes in on our porch light, warm against dusk. We didn't ask for a fight, but when it came, we didn't fold. We told the truth. We backed each other. We found the quiet hero in the room and believed her. And now I'm going to hand it to you, because these stories don't end when the credits say they do. Did we do the right thing, pressing back even when it meant going into the dark to get answers? Where's the line between keeping a neighborhood nice and letting a handful of people play king of the block with everyone's money? Drop your take. What's fair? What went too far? And how would you fix an HOA that forgets? It serves the people who pay the dues.